If you want to learn more about Dragon Ball video games, check out my book, Play the Dragon, the History of Dragon Ball Video Games, which covers everything from the Famicom all the way to the PlayStation era. And it includes reviews, retrospectives, and detailed information about all these games. And as an added bonus, if you purchase the physical copy from Amazon, you get the Kindle version for your phone or your tablet directly for free. So buy it today. Welcome to Awesome Video Game Memories, where we talk about awesome memories about video games. I'm Ryan, and the game we're going to talk about today is Secret of Mana. So, Secret of Mana is one of my all-time favorite RPGs. I remember back in 1993, I was like, whoa, that looks like the Square version of Zelda. Well, I was kind of right there. But I didn't exactly get to play Secret of Mana on the Super Nintendo until 1994 when I rented it from a video rental, and I only got as far as the Witch's Castle. So I rented the game again in the fall, and I made it as far as getting Flammy for the first time. So I remember at Christmas of 1994, I was running through Target with my parents, and then this one person was like, well, some people are so rude, they have to run through the store for their kids. I pretty much told my parents, I want to buy Secret of Mana for $59.99 at Target in 1994. I wonder how much that is now, adjusted for inflation. Oh. So during Christmas vacation in 1994, when I was in the 8th grade, I beat Secret of Mana in 5 days, just playing it non-stop, and it was awesome. So I have repeated the game several times throughout the years. I probably have repeated it 5 to 6 times already, and when I heard they were doing a remake on the PS4, I was like, oh my god, they're doing a remake of one of my favorite games of all time, man! So just to let people know that this game is not like a reboot or a reimagining, this is definitely a straight up graphical remake. They add a couple of new things here and there, but not enough to really make it too different from the original game. So when I'm talking about the new version of the game, I'm also talking about the old Super Nintendo one. So I was a bit surprised that this physical version of the game was a GameStop exclusive. You know, that place where nobody shops at anymore because of, I don't know, Amazon, Best Buy, and other online retailers. But you know what? I just decided, I could get this discounted somewhere else or just get it digitally day one. But hey, I'm just going to buy the physical version because I just want a physical version. That's it. And a couple of things that they do add in this remake are, well, obviously enhanced graphics, but, not as enhanced as I'd like for them to be. And they add voice acting for all the characters. Yes, every single character in this game has a voice, even all the normal townspeople. Now, I like the voices for the 3 main leads, Randy, Prim, and Popoy, but some of the other voices are kind of okay. But I do like Neko's voice. Bising Mew. That's perfect. Oh, and I also like Gemma's voice too. Gemma's cool.
Legend says the sword can only be retrieved by a knight when the world is in peril.
So the plot of Secret of Mana revolves around mankind using mana for their evil deeds, just like a bad Magic the Gathering game where they're tapping all their mana and not using it. So they build the evil Mana Fortress because they just need to build something like the Technodrome in the sky. But then the gods are pissed off and angry, and so they send a mana beast to destroy the fortress. They're like, you misuse our power of mana. Destroy this Mana Fortress! Destroy it! And then they have one Mana Holy Knight destroy the whole fortress and the world's back at peace until a young boy named Randy is playing with his friends out in the wilderness, and then he falls down the waterfall uh-oh, what's gonna happen here? And then he pulls out the mana sword, or a rusty sword, but it's a mana sword. You'll know it's the mana sword. And then some ghostly figure tells him, Randy, you are the hero of the story. You must take this sword out and save the world. Well, instead of saving the world, the whole town, well, his whole town of Podos, is attacked by monsters. Holy shit! So Randy valiantly defends his village and is thrown out by the Elder because he basically brought all the monsters here. Well, that's the biggest fuck you to the hero of the village. So Randy is on a quest to restore mana to the world by visiting the 8 palaces and stopping the evil Vandal Empire from achieving their goals. So anyways, the combat in this game is very much like the Legend of Zelda series, but very, very different in a lot of ways. Unlike the Zelda games, like, you can't exactly repeatedly hit your enemies, so it kind of threw me off about this game when I first played it on the Super Nintendo is you have to wait for your characters to charge up to 100% before they can throw a strong attack, because if you try to repeatedly hit your enemies, you're not going to do any damage to them at all. So it's a bit different in Zelda in that way. And what's always kind of bothered me about this game is kind of the hit detection on the enemies and yourselves. Like, the enemies, when they do damage to you, they do a lot of damage. And in order to hit your enemies and get the full effect of it, like, you have to wait until the meter hits 100%, and then after that you can hit them. And sometimes your attacks don't even go through, which really sucks, especially for armored enemies, so you have to use magic to defeat them. And a lot of the times, if you don't level up your magic, and the way you level up your magic is by just casting it over and over to charge it up, and you need to have mana seeds to charge your magic won't do a lot of damage unless you do a lot of grinding in this game. Actually, with the wonky hit detection, you can actually hit an enemy, you'll see them get damage, and they're kind of reeling back in their recovery animation. But the problem is, when you're surrounded by enemies, this doesn't really help you one bit, because while you're waiting for your attack to charge again, other enemies can hit you, and they hit hard, trust me. I actually do consider the beginning of the game up until after you beat the Witch's Castle to be probably the hardest part of the game until you get to the Pure Land, because especially the Witch's Forest and the Witch's Castle, the enemies do a lot of damage, especially that fucking tiger boss in the Witch's Castle. Urgh. And later on in the game, you're accompanied by the girl Prim, who is actually part of the Kingdom of Pandora, and her boyfriend Diluc is fighting in the Pandoran army, and he gets kind of brainwashed by the main villain of the game, Thanatos, who works for the Vandal Empire. Then you're also accompanied by a sprite named Popoi, who is he, she, it, well, basically androgynous. So later on in the game, Prim and Popoi are able to cast magic, but Randy cannot because he's supposed to be the mana hero of the sword. And one of the big problems with this game up until pretty much the end, physical attacks don't do as much damage as magic attacks. Like, what really sucks is once you power up Randy's weapons, he's pretty useless for the most part because most of the enemies you pretty much have to kill with magic. And one thing I actually really like about this game is the cannon travel sequences. Like, I remember on the Super Nintendo, when you see your characters get launched out of the cannon in Mode 7, and I'm like, wouldn't they die from that in real life from the impact? But hey, it's a role-playing game, it's a video game. Characters can fall from long distances and not get hurt at all. And what really sucks about the remake is they actually take this away from the game. I mean, why? I mean, technology today on the PS4 can easily handle like Mode 7 zooming. Like, it would have been cool to see how the cannon travel happens on the PS4. And one thing about the PS4 remake is there is a lot of loading time between areas. Like in the original Secret of Mana, like most dungeons were just this one big area. But the problem is in the remake, they kind of split the dungeon sections a lot more, so there's more loading time in between rooms. But the reason why they actually did this was to actually put checkpoints at the beginning of each of these dungeon rooms, which makes it a lot easier to get through. So if you die in a dungeon, you don't have to go all the way back to your previous save point. You just go back to the beginning of the part where you died, which is a huge lifesaver in the remake, because this is one thing I really hated about the SNES version. And also one thing they added in the remake is when you actually go to the inns, you have Randy, Prim, and Popoi having conversation like, Diluc is like the best guy ever. Hey, you guys are my minions, so you do what I say. What? I gotta do what you say? Wait, I'm supposed to be the mana hero here, dudes. I mean, they weren't really necessary, but they're kind of a cute touch. And one thing about this game that I kind of like and dislike is the remixed music. I gotta admit, a lot of the tunes in the remake don't sound as good as the original. I was kind of disappointed how mangled some of the songs come off as in comparison to the original, but you do have an option to use the original music, so yeah. So once you handle all of your business in the beginning, you go up to the upper continent in the Forest of Seasons. Now I remember when I played this on the Super Nintendo, I did not know the sequence of where I needed to go with the seasons. I'm like, summer, fall, spring, winter, something, something, something. And so when I played the game again, 20 years later in the remake, I completely forgot what to do. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go winter, then spring, then fall, then summer. Oh wait, that doesn't work. Well, I live in California, so the only season we have is summer and not summer. Although I was interested in seeing how Matango looked in the remake. And I do remember back when I was playing this on the Super Nintendo back in 1994, I was like, hey, this is where all the good Goombas from the Mario games go. Yeah! And yes, this game actually has Santa Claus in it. Now I remember when I actually went to Santa's workshop, I'm like, Santa's gone, what happened to him? And then when you fight the Frost Gigas up in the North Pole, I was like, holy shit, the Frost Gigas was Santa! No, Santa! In Secret of Mana, you get to save Christmas! Yeah! Now all the kids will get their presents again! And actually, one of the boss battles that I really did enjoy was actually fighting one of the Empire's generals, Geshtar, who actually becomes the Mech Rider in the game. And I've always enjoyed the battles with the Mech Rider, because I think the Mech Rider is a pretty cool design, because he has a motorcycle and stuff. I mean, he's not super difficult to defeat, but he doesn't really have a magical weakness, and you really have to use magic to defeat him. But if you kind of grind most of your spells, like pretty much up to level 4, you can pretty much get through the majority of the battles in this game without doing too much grinding. So after you handle the Sand Ship and the Fire Palace, you go to the Empire, or the Vandal Empire, where you kind of have to go through the sewers to meet the Resistance, and then you run into Resistance leader Chrissy, who's 18 years old, and she's like, we're gonna topple the Empire. So she's basically Poe Dameron of Secret of Mana. Although, back in 1994, this is way before the Star Wars prequels and the sequels ever existed. And let's not forget the spooky ruins in Pandora and the Empire, where I always felt like the music in these things felt like a psycho killer was chasing you. And then you had to fight those evil walls at the end. And I remember the first time I actually played this game, the walls crushed me because I just did not have enough magic to actually damage it enough to kill it. And then when I played the remake 20 years later, the same thing happened again. Yeah. And so after that, the Emperor's like, I want a truce. This kind of sounds familiar. And then he puts everybody in prison! Well, surprise there. And then after that, you make your way through the Emperor's palace, and then you have to fight Geshtar as the Mech Rider again! And then once you beat him, he's like, fuck all of you, I'm gonna blow up the castle! Although when you re-enter the castle, everything's just fine. And then you actually get a grown-up Flammy! And then you're able to explore the world. Awesome. So once you finally get to explore the world in its Mode 7 glory, and it still looks pretty primitive Mode 7 in the remake, the first stop you have to go to is the Palace of Darkness. And I remember as a kid, I was fucking scared of this place. Like, oh my god, this place is so dark and scary, holy shit. And then you gotta fight this gigantic ass blob in the palace, which is a test by the elemental Shade. I was just testing you in my House of Horrors, but now you get to use my dark magic. And then you climb up the mountain and you encounter Sage Jacques, who tells you what to do and where to go in the game, just in case you get lost. And I remember this one turtle island where you get the rabbit's foot. These two kids are like, we're married! It doesn't even matter how old you are.
Who cares how old you are? We're in love! That's why we are lovers!
Marriage matters if you just love each other. Okay, kids. I don't know what country you're supposed to be on, considering you're on a completely deserted island with a small amount of people. But, you know, in other parts of the world, this is kind of illegal. And aren't you guys like a little too young to be married and stuff like that?
We're married!
Oh, well. It's a video game. Thank you, Square, for showing this to, a sensitive audience even back in 1994. And also, one of my favorite parts of the game was going to Gold City, the Empire's Gold City, which I was like, dude, I think only Scrooge McDuck can live in here. Holy crap, this place is covered in gold! Gold, gold, gold! It's all covered in gold! Where you actually get Lumina. And plus, once you're given the runaround by Sage Jock and his assistant Jack, you actually have to prove yourselves by actually fighting yourselves in this test of courage. Because the worst enemy that you must face is yourself. And once you actually defeat yourselves, which isn't actually the hardest battle, you actually realize that Sage Jack was Sage Jock in disguise. I think I've done this a little too many times in this review. And so your next goal is to stop the Empire from resurrecting the Great Palace, but obviously you fail anyways and have to trek through a gigantic palace with all the mana seeds, and holy shit, there's a lot of monsters and bosses in this place. Wow, this is pretty long, guys. But then you have one last encounter with Geshtar, the mech rider, but he's now a complete machine, under control, so he's like a Terminator now. Which is a shame. I really liked the Geshtar and the mech rider, but now he's just a senseless robot. And even in the remake, his voice actor just pretty much portrays him as a robot. Time to kill you guys. I am Geshtar mech rider. Vroom vroom. So after your last battle with Geshtar the mech rider, the whole sunken continent sinks back down again. Neko sells really fucking expensive items. Holy shit, they're expensive. And then Gemma tells you, you must go to the Pure Land. Holy shit, the monsters here are hard with a capital H. And I admit, when I first played through this, I just ran from most of the monsters because those griffin hands can pretty much kill you in one hit. And I have to admit, the bosses of the Pure Land were actually easier than getting through the enemies. I shit you not. Well, because there's so many enemies and you only have to fight, the bosses once. Even though there's a lot of bosses, but hey, you do actually get your health restored when you save in the Pure Land, so yeah. And then you finally get to the mana tree, and then after that, Thanatos uses the mana fortress to blow the mana tree out of the sky. No, you can't do that to the mana tree. And then the mana tree reveals that she was your mother. Okay, I'm not gonna do that again. Oh, fuck it. So many plot twists in this game, man. This truly is the secret of mana. Well, what is the secret anyways? And then the ghost you saw at the beginning of the game telling you to pull the sword was your father, Saren, the last of the Mana Knights. So with renewed resolve, your party flies to the Mana Fortress with really awesome flying music. Now, actually, I remember in the SNES version, I remember having kind of difficulty entering the Mana Fortress. And I was like, how do I enter the fortress? Oh, you just do it automatically. Where in the remake, you just press a button to enter it, which makes it a lot easier. And actually, the Mana Fortress, in my opinion, is not as hard as the Pure Land. So one thing about the Mana Fortress in the original Super Nintendo version, it was just like 3 or 4 really huge areas with 2 bosses, Buffy the Vampire and, the Big Blob. But this time in the remake, they split the Mana Fortress section, so at least when you die and restart your game again, you can actually load your game from the beginning of the section you died at, which makes it a lot easier, but at the same time, it's also annoying. So sections that you used to run through, now you got loading time. So once you make your way through the Mana Fortress, you encounter Diluc! You're safe, let's get you back! But then Thanatos is like, my body's crumbling, I'm gonna take Diluc's body! But then we fend off Thanatos, and then he disintegrates, and then he takes over Diluc's body like this!
Yes, I'm Thanatos. I've taken over this review of this game. Now what the shit?
Guys, it's me, Ryan. I have to finish this review. I must force Thanatos out. Oh god, no, Thanatos' spirit is out in the open as the Dark Lich. And holy shit, he's crazy looking. He's like 10 times bigger. And holy crap, all he just had to do is shoot him with a lot of magic, which isn't super hard. And then after that, Diluc is gone. Diluc sacrificed himself in order to help stop Thanatos. A moment of silence for Diluc. So we go outside to the Mana Fortress, and then the Mana Beast is attacking the fortress again! Holy crap, but if we destroy the Mana Beast, who's one of the sources of mana, we destroy Poi Poi the Sprite! No, we can't do it, Poi Poi! We can't lose you! Yeah, I did find the battle a lot easier, casting the lunar magic to make the boy a lot stronger, and so he can hit harder. And then eventually, when I kept replaying the game a lot, I leveled up all of my characters to level 99 and raised all the spells to level 8, and I was able to defeat the Mana Beast pretty easily. I recall, if you hit the Mana Beast about 10 times with 999 damage, that pretty much kills him off. So I think he only has 9,999 hit points. So after you defeat the Mana Beast, the Mana Fortress crashes into the mountains. Well, you don't exactly see the Mana Fortress, but it's heavily implied. Randy and Prim are like, well, Poi Poi's gone now. He became one with Mana again. And they're like, holy crap, the Mana Beast has turned to snow! It's snowing! So Randy and Prim go around the world telling their friends of their victory. Then after that, Randy gets accepted back into his village. He puts the sword back, and then we see a ghostly Poi Poi looking upon the village that Poi Poi stayed in and looks up into the sky. And that ends Secret of Mana. So while the Super Nintendo version of Secret of Mana is one of my personal favorite games of all time, the remake kind of leaves a bit to be desired because they didn't do as much as I would hope they would do. Of course, they added a couple new cutscenes, they added some dialogue in the ends, but it still feels like it's very half-assed. Like they still show like transitions to indicate, you know, characters are moving to another place rather than showing cutscenes doing so. Like it would have been cool to see Geshtar change into his mech rider armor, or it would have been cool to see just characters move around a lot more. I mean, it's kind of cool they added some voices here and there, but a couple of the voices sound kind of silly, even though I do like the 3 leads and Neko. Overall, it's kind of hard for me to really recommend the remake of Secret of Mana for full price. I mean, I would honestly recommend, you know, trying to get an SNES Mini and play the original from there, get it on one of the various virtual consoles, or just wait for the remake to really go down in price. And also, if you pre-order the remake from anywhere, you get some additional costumes, which are kind of a novelty, but I don't really care much about them. Alright guys, so that ends this episode of awesome video game memories about Secret of Mana and its remake. While it's still one of my personal favorite games of all time, I still highly recommend it, but I don't recommend getting the remake until it gets a lot cheaper, or unless you get it as a gift. Well guys, I got something to do. Hey everybody, Ryan here, and thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, especially subscribe, and make sure to click on that notification bell so you know when we release new videos, because YouTube probably won't tell you. And if you want to watch me play games live, you can watch me on twitch.tv/BattleGeekPlus. And if you have a Twitch Prime account, you can subscribe for emotes and a lot more awesome perks to support the show. And if you want to support the show, you can donate at patreon.com/Ryan Molina, because every dollar helps me bring you a better show. And make sure to follow me on Twitter at @RyanMolina and at BattleGeekPlus. And also make sure to check out the official Battle Geek Plus website at BattleGeekPlus.com. We got books, we got t-shirts. Make sure to check out our awesome popcorn-related t-shirts, our Battle Geek Plus t-shirts, and a lot more. And last but not least, make sure to check out these other videos while you're here. Thank you very much, and see you later.